Hola, 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 hola México, ¿cómo están? Oigan, es un gran gusto estar acá. I'm really happy for being here. I'm Av, the co-founder of Espacio Crypto and Bando, and I think that there's a lot of community here. ¿Quién es de Espacio Crypto aquí? Griten un poco. Levanten la mano, Espacio Crypto. Amazing, great people, and I'm gonna drop a couple of announcements while my time here, and mientras estoy haciendo todo esto de maestro de ceremonias, and I feel like we're hosting a World Cup right now, right? The World Cup is next year, but Solana came early, and I'm really happy to introduce the team of the Solana Foundation. That right now they're gonna be having a fireside chat about investing in the ecosystem. What makes investing in the ecosystem special? Specifically, there's going to be Rodolfo Gonzalez from Foundation Capital. And I want to tell a little bit the story about Rodolfo. He's Mexican. He's a Mexican investing in the top VC as a top VC in the industry. So let's hear it for Rodolfo. Rodolfo estudió Rodolfo estudió en la UNAM, luego estudió en el TEC de Monterrey, ahora vive en Estados Unidos, entonces tenemos a un representante en los top VCs del mundo, entonces un aplauso de nuevo para Rodolfo. And the second panelist is David Taylor from Etherfuse, and hear it for David. Perfect, so raise the hand the people that has at some point bought a SETE, a government bond in Mexico. Un SETE, ¿quién ha comprado un SETE? Okay, perfect. Maybe more people has bought crypto right now, but basically this guy is enabling SETEs on chain on Solana. And that's a huge thing, you know? So let's hear it for David and Rodolfo, and see you around, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all having me here. I kind of want to start this out by asking Rodolfo to explain a little bit about his background. I do think it is pretty special. You're from here, and you were a huge part of the early progress of Solana. So if you could give us a little bit of background about your experience here and investing in LATAM, and then we'll go into Solana.
Hola a todos. Es un placer estar por acá. It's been a dream. Thank you, Ellie, for making this happen. Maybe one day we'll convince the Solana Foundation to host Breakpoint here in Mexico City.
Hey.
It's amazing that the community is showing up. I know that we've been wanting to get these guys to be more active here and just increase the presence both of Solana and then just crypto in general here in Mexico. I'm from Mexico City. Actually, here at Hacienda de los Morales was my graduation ceremony like a long time ago. So it's great to be here. I've been with Foundation Capital for 12 years, doing a lot of our crypto work and fintech work and investments in Latin America. So here within the Latin America ecosystem, I'm investor in Justo, Rappi, Clivi, Momento Seguros, like lots of fintechs within the ecosystem. And then in the US, we've done a lot of investments in crypto. And I was very fortunate to get to meet Tolly and Rash back in 2018 when they were raising their seed round, and we invested multiple times in the network when people were not super keen on investing in Solana, and of course that has been fantastic for Foundation Capital, for my career, and I'm just so grateful that everybody is here. And within the last couple of years, obviously Solana has gone through a lot. Some great ups, some terrible downs. The last couple of years have been pretty tough for those of us working in crypto in the US. Everything that we've heard about Operation Choke Point, people not being able to build within the US in crypto. But seems like the times are changing, and now we see a huge amount of activity, both with stable coins, with new ways to interact with the network. all of the technological developments that they're rolling out, like Fire Dancer being live, ANSA team just being incredible, and just what's coming down the pipe, like with 00 building basically a new internet for blockchains. Like there's a ton of incredible technical developments that basically mean that Solana is just here to stay and is going to be the backbone of this new financial ecosystem for the internet, for the world. And we think that Latin America is going to be a huge user and hopefully huge contributor to the network in the near future. So thank you.
I think one of the things you mentioned is Solana's here to stay, and it's obvious now. I kind of want to go back to, as a VC, you have to make, in some ways, controversial choices. So you invested in Solana when it wasn't an obvious choice. So tell us a little bit more about when you first met Toli, and what was the broader context of crypto like at that point in time, and what made you ultimately make the choice to invest?
So I guess I'll go a little bit further back. Like I got into crypto back in 2013, like Bitcoin, just super excited about that piece. Then Ethereum comes along and introduces smart contracts. Some bad stuff happens, like the DAO happens and so on. But between that time and then 2017, 2018, when it was very obvious to a lot of people that Bitcoin and Ethereum would not be able to scale. Like if you started working backwards from how do you bring 1 billion users to interact with the blockchains, Bitcoin and Ethereum were just not going to have the capabilities to run, whether it was like a Twitter feed or social media or anything high throughput. And so then you had either to accept that the blockchain trilemma would not be solved in the 2014 framework of security, scalability, and throughput, or that you would need different architectures to come around. Ethereum at the time was already proposing a layer cake, right? And a lot of very smart people and investors were making the bet that the game was over, that Ethereum already had the network effects as defined by the number of developers building on the network. And so that, it was game over. Why would you invest in a different architecture? For us, we had the opposite view of that. Maybe first principles thinking of how do you preserve the security of the network, but bringing a different architecture could be a way to solve the problem. And so around that time, we were meeting with different networks that were proposing these alternative architectures that were just not doing EVM stuff, that they were just starting from scratch, basically. And the problem with a lot of the networks and the architectures that were being proposed is that the people trying to build them were just not good enough. Like they were just not strong enough to actually turn that theory into reality. And then one of the things that happens when you meet Toli is like, holy shit, like this guy's really smart. And you're like suddenly the slowest person in the room, and he's telling you how he's gonna build decentralized NASDAQ, and you're like, okay, but what you're saying doesn't make sense. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna wait. And there's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, and so the pitch in his mind, like the pitch could have been done in 5 minutes, but he has to go through 30 minutes because everybody else is kind of running at a slower speed. And that's basically the history of Solana. Like, very smart, very hardworking engineers kind of waiting for the world to catch up to their vision. And we're seeing that over many, many years. Toli had spent time at Dropbox doing decentralized systems. And prior to that, he was at Qualcomm. And he was involved with building the operating system Brew, which was at the time still used in like a couple 100 million devices. And one of the key insights was that telcos had already figured out a way to keep time synchronized across multiple devices without having a central authority. And so the key insight for Solana was like, okay, you can do a lot of the architecture of maintaining state or getting everybody to agree that the transaction happened. And you can remove a lot of the constraints that the initial architecture of Bitcoin and Ethereum would bring, and then you just go for it and just go faster and faster and faster, and then using hardware and taking advantage of Moore's law to just keep basically optimizing the network and increasing the throughput over time. And so, yes, you start with a lower level of transactions, but over time you have a path to tens of thousands and then eventually million transactions. And so it was like, Jesus, holy shit, like that's insane. At the time, I still have a lot of the emails and I have receipts. I sent it to all of the smart third and me investors in Silicon Valley, and everybody's like, no, that's stupid. Like Ethereum already won. Like, why would we do that? And so because of that, it was a great investment because not a lot of people wanted to invest, and Tolly and Rash were not the most gifted fundraisers at the time. And so Solana as a whole, like, was always running out of money because they could never really raise that much money. But I think like when you look at how much they actually raise, it's like this whole architecture came together with less than $30 million in venture capital, where now like you see seed rounds for random shitty things raising 30, 40, 50 million, and the founders are just like, oh, we need more, like, this is not good enough. So it was contrarian at the time, and obviously, paid out in big ways for many different reasons.
Awesome. It's always good to see a conviction bet play out. I want to get your opinion on how Solana is well suited specifically for Latin America. Like where's the intersection of value there compared to other chains specifically, but why should Latin Americans really take a look at Solana and build applications on Solana?
I think the way that I think about it is a lot of what has made the internet useful and successful is that it's freely accessible to people, right? Yeah, maybe you get ads in some cases, like there are ways to monetize that, but the fact that people don't have to start by putting money up front to actually benefit from the systems of the internet has been amazing, right? In connecting us, like, that's why WhatsApp is amazing. YouTube is amazing in so many ways. And part of the challenge with some of the prior generation blockchains is that if the transaction fees are, $50 to $100, that's a meaningful percentage of the average income for a user here, right? And so you kind of like have to get the religion of increased bandwidth, reduced latency, just bring the transaction fees to zero or almost zero. And I think with that, Solana has a chance to actually be a really good complement to the high throughput payment systems that Latin America has been investing in, right? Whether it's Pix or whether it's Pay and so on. And just really, because in Latin America, the payment networks are basically owned by banks in different ways. It has traditionally been really expensive for new payments companies to enter the market because they get worse rates than everybody else. But when you have essentially free transactions that you can run here with this network, you actually create a credible competitor to the traditional payment systems. And it's just better in many use cases. Like cross-border is the most obvious, right? The spreads between sending money from even the US, even though the Mexican peso has the most liquidity, it's still like 3 to 5% spread, and you still, have to wait like a week to get your money, and it's still hard. Whereas now, like, I use Bitso all the time, and it's like the 0.8% spread, but it just instantly here. So it's just amazing.
Yeah, I would say SPAY and near real-time blockchains is a match made in heaven. So I think we'll see a lot more with Solana integrating with like STP-MX and things like that. I'm going to leave 10 minutes to let founders ask questions. But before that, maybe I propose to you, what are you looking for, or do you have any hypotheses in Mexico specifically of crypto companies that could be built here that you want to see? Or what are you looking for to if people are building, like, this would be interesting for Rodolfo?
We're looking at a number of projects here in the ecosystem already, right? Some of the obvious ones, cross-border related activities, right? Businesses want better financial services. In many cases, better brokerage, better FX, better liquidity provision, and so founders that are working on those types of opportunities are always interesting to us. People that are actually bringing not just the dollar-denominated accounts to the LATAM consumers. Like, I think that's fine. That's a good starting point. But starting to bring some of the more interesting use cases to the ecosystem is also very, very appealing, right? I would love to take a few minutes for you to explain what Etherfuse does and how you're bringing real-world assets into this, because you can start providing alternative access to a lot of the interesting investment products across the region in a way that was just simply not possible before. So I would actually love to get there.
Our perspective, for those who don't know, we're incorporated in Mexico City. We're incorporated here. And we came here because we just really looked at like the demographics of this country, the growth that's expected. The incentives are here for crypto to succeed. I'm, as you could probably guess, I'm born and raised in the US, but the US has been quite unfriendly to adopting crypto. And so when we decided, hey, we want to build something that's going to revolutionize, who would let us? And so we came here and we talked with the CMBV and we worked with the Ministry of Finance for a long time. And we were ultimately able to build products that work in this ecosystem. So for us, we really believe the incentives are here to integrate with the blockchain. The needs are here. Us particular, what we essentially do is we tokenize real world assets, particularly sovereign debt. So right now, if as a Mexican, you want to buy CETES, you go to CETES Directo. You can do that. It may not be liquid. You may not be able to sell it. You may need your money back. You can also do that on Solana today. You can buy CETES. If you want to sell it, you can. If you want to do loans against it and DeFi, it's yours. You can. So I would say the ability for Solana to do things quickly, for cheaply, really just is a force multiplier for these real world products we have. And if you look at some things, in Mexico, like, financial access, it's about 40% of this country doesn't have access to a bank account. And if you try to set up a bank account, you know why. It's very hard here. If you try to buy a bond, it's very hard here. Well, Solana and this technology has made it very, very easy for us to provide those same services with a lot more benefits. So that's ultimately the incentives are why we chose to come here. We have about 10 more minutes. I want to give the opportunity for founders here to ask Rodolfo anything. Now, I can attest he knows a lot about this space. We've known each other for 3 years now. I think we met in Portugal. I have bothered him many times. Hey, help me solve this problem. And he's always give great feedback. And part of the reason we've been successful is because of the good and bad feedback he's given us. So is there anybody here who has a question for, I would say, one of the most relevant Mexican Solana investors in the world? And if you can, could you stand up or raise your hand and we can get a mic to you? Okay, in the back there. We'll get you a mic.
Yeah, there's a few.
Mic.
Can we get the mic for the audience, please?
Yeah.
Hey, happy to be here for the first LATAM. My question is simple. Remittance is a major total per year. For example, in 2023, remittance from the US to Mexico or to LATAM it was estimated at about 64 million. And 2024, 2025, that will increase. So you were talking about payment processing, but what type of cross payment processing or remittance service or even settlement, virtual by card or by actual physical companies, would you see as the next step?
Okay, let me see if I understand the question. So like there's a ton of cross-border volume already. So
But
what
it's
would
not
be the
it's
opportunities?
remittance. It's remittance in itself. For example, individuals who work within the US or any first world that wants to send money back home to Salvador, to Mexico, to Guatemala, it doesn't matter which where, any country within the Central, South, or even the Caribbean,
Yeah.
which is significantly high, right?
Yeah.
Solana, which I just need to point out, has just went through 1 year without any major interruption, which is good. That's a key plus. But when it comes to cross payment distribution, what's your opinion or your take on that? What is needed there to maximize it so we go from not sending fiat?
Yeah. Okay,
Right?
I think we get it. Actually, I think Dave is way more qualified than me to answer that specific question because like he's made a ton of progress on that front.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is crypto is already taking over remittances today. I don't know if I was supposed to hear this, but I'm pretty sure that Bitso handles 50% of remittances right now. So that's already a crypto company taking over remittances today. The biggest problem with remittances, what I would say today, well, let me just shout out like Alfred Pay is here. They do off-ramping. Rio is here. They do off-ramping. MoneyGram's integration on Stellar product is off-ramping. So people are trying to solve the problem. But I would say that the biggest issue is the gap between like traditional finance and liquidity of these tokens. So like before crypto, sending money was like 3 to 7%, you know. Now you can get it here for about 1% or 85 bips. That should go close to zero. It's technically feasible with Solana and a strong partnership with founders here. So I would put I would say my opinion is it's coming, and we will start to see all remittances move through the blockchain because it is. I mean, my past startup was a payments company in the US. It is 1,000-yard leap better to settle funds on the blockchain than it is in traditional finance. There's too many systems in the way. We're solving the problem, and Mexicans are doing it here. A lot of great Mexican companies, and it's cool to see.
Next question.
Hello. Yeah. Well, this question is to Rodolfo Gonzalez. Since I was taking a look on Foundation Capital's website to understand a little bit more about the thesis, what you care about crypto. My question is quite straightforward. I want to kind of understand what are the key metrics that you pay more attention to see that there's a company that has this potential to get this market share, such as Bitcoin remittances and so.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like the way that we think about it in terms of fundraising, and by the way, like we have 2 more team members from Foundation Capital here from the investment team. Gracie in the back, raise your hand, please. And then Nico is somewhere around there. We're gonna be doing the workshop as well for VC, and she's gonna lead that part for us. So definitely go there because it's gonna be a lot more in depth than what I can provide here, right? But I guess at the core is like if you're just getting started, think about the key milestones to identify whether you have an actual opportunity there, right? And so, are there people that love your product and are using it, right? Like the YC make something people want mantra is great to get started. And when you're doing it on chain, what is really cool is that you can leave a trace, right? And you can actually start seeing whether people are engaging with your product, whether you start getting some traction all together. On my side, I'm looking for a sense of product market fit, and product market fit is like this weird concept that you kind of understand it when you see it, but it's hard to define upfront, right? Because if I tell you you need to be growing 10% month over month, you're going to focus on growing 10% month over month, but maybe you're not generating margin, or maybe you're not keeping the users around, and so. So it's kind of like, are you building a good relationship with your customers that they stick around in whatever form you're building? And then from there is like, can you do 10x, 100x, 1000x more volume of what you're doing today? Can you repeat that? And that's basically how you build that company, right? Like, I think about it in terms of the econ classes, right? Like where you're like analyzing the widget, right? And like, what is the widget that you're creating? And then can you sell 1,000 of these widgets to people out there? And that's basically what we look for in a nutshell. Obviously, it gets more nuanced from there, but it's pretty straightforward at some level.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I forgot to shout out Decaf. You can send money from a US bank account to a Mexican bank account with Decaf too for really cheap.
I had a great surprise because a couple of years ago when Solana was in just bad shape, I had put like 3 Sol into my wallet and I hadn't opened it for a bit, but like I just use it to buy coffee right now. And I just saw that my 3.5 Sol is like, oh, it's almost $1,000. This is like, Jesus, this is amazing.
All right, I think we have.
I love crypto.
I think we have time for one more question. Sir, let's get a mic up front.
Hola, Rodolfo. Hola, David. So nice to have you here. First of all, thank you. I have no idea that there was like a Mexican entrepreneur that I was very into Solana. Entonces, antes que nada, muchas gracias. Nosotros somos una comunidad que se llama RWAs. Vimos que, chido, vimos que hay una gran oportunidad, y ahorita, I'm going to speak in English just to capitalize, en educar a la gente acerca del mundo cripto y específicamente en Solana. O sea, lo que vimos como clave es obviamente la escalabilidad y que es muy sencillo para alguien adoptar la tecnología. Pero ahora hemos sido más de 1000 usuarios en los primeros 30 días, ha sido bastante bien aceptado. Nuestra misión es crear nuevos productos DeFi y darle herramientas a las personas para que puedan incorporar a su vida. Pero ¿cómo hacemos para bajar información? O sea, por ejemplo, hackatones para crear nuevo talento mexicano que pueda entender el lenguaje de Rust, porque tal vez hay mucho en Solidity y hay mucho desarrollo de tecnología ahí, pero incluso nosotros mismos al desarrollar nuestro producto DeFi nos topamos con developers muy avanzados en Solidity, pero que de Rust no hay mucha información en español. E incluso como en este evento, por ejemplo, tal vez mucha de la comunidad que viene con nosotros no es 100% fluida en inglés. Entonces, ¿cómo podemos hacer esa conexión con Solana Foundation o con personas que tú conozcas para poder bajar información más de primera mano con Solana developers, ¿no?
So this is almost a question more for the Solana Foundation, right? Like you guys are putting a lot of effort into implementing kind of like other languages and teaching people how to get more familiar with Rust and so on. So like there's going to be ongoing efforts on that front. I think the reality is that in today's world, the more English you speak, more opportunities come to you, right? I'm the Series A investor in a company called Platzi, which is the largest edtech in Latin America. And we've done study after study after study where at every position, if you compare somebody that speaks English versus doesn't speak English, is like 2 to 3x the income level that the person generates, and the opportunities that open up to you are just amazing. So, yes, like there will be more efforts to make it more accessible in Spanish, but the reality is that speaking English correctly, it's a fucking superpower. So like there's no other way around it. It's like if you get better on that, like all of the opportunities of the world will come up to you. Because the reality is that the world is going to keep publishing in English first. A lot of the technology is going to be available in English first. And so you're going to have a better chance to be at the cutting edge if you guys like spend a lot of investment of your time and energy into speaking better English. And then of course, like the better coder you are, and Solidity was good for a while for Ethereum. The reality is like Rust seems to be the new programming language that is kind of like taking hold. And of course it's hard, but that also means that the quality of projects in Solana has just been outstanding relative to some of the other chains where the products just kind of break altogether, right? And so, yeah, it is harder, but like for the people that are dedicated and just put the effort into stepping up the ladder, the world just becomes your oyster. And so for me, it's just more like, yeah, there's more work that we need to do as a community to bring it and make it more accessible. But on the other hand, like there are some of you here who are going to be world-class citizens within the Solana community just by the pure effort of just getting better at it.
And I will, to your point, give a shout out to Solana All-Stars, which has a good Latin American community. I think primarily based out of Venezuela, but all over Latin America, but also Super Team Latam. They do a lot of development resources and things like that. It's like, I don't know if they're sponsored by, but pretty much founded by the Solana ecosystem. So they are there and they are trying. So thank you.
Thank you all.